What's up guys, and welcome to another Mass Effect character overview. This time I'm bringing to you the N7 Slayer. He's the new Vanguard class from the new Earth DLC. He's a pretty fun class to play. Being a Vanguard though, you're going to be spamming a lot of biotic powers and you're not going to worry too much about your weapon. But yeah, because you'll definitely want to pick a low weight weapon so that you can spam the powers with the least amount of recharge time. But everything about this character is very similar to the Phantom from the Cerberus enemies, and therefore also similar to Kai Lang, and just everything about him is similar. The way he dresses, the way his power works, and I think that's what makes him kind of fun to play because you kind of feel like a badass when playing him. Despite that, the Slayer does have a few downsides, which I'll get to soon. But before I break down an overview of the powers, I kind of wanted to explain the Slayer's rolling and melee attacks, because they are a bit different than your standard classes. And it's different because, for example, when you roll with this class, it's more of a dodge, like a teleport dodge than a roll, and or some people call it shadow step. And it allows you to dodge enemies better than your standard roll, and also allows you to teleport through some walls. And but the downside is that whenever you roll, you take a little bit of your barrier down. So if you roll too much consecutively, you'll take down your entire barrier, and that's not a good thing. And the Slayer's melee attacks are also a bit different since it also utilizes like a teleport kind of thing. Even with the light melee, it'll teleport, but with the heavy melee, I think it does take a little bit of your barrier down also. But it's a bit less than your standard dodge. So if you were to teleport through a wall, because you can still teleport through the walls with the heavy melee, use the heavy melee rather than the dodge because it takes less of your barrier down. But anyways, let's get to an overview of the powers. Now, the first power I wanted to cover was Biotic Charge. The Slayer's Biotic Charge isn't any different from the Biotic Charge of other Vanguards, and you don't have the luxury of increasing its recharge time through something like Nova. So I don't use it as much because the recharge time is pretty long. I think at least 4 seconds. I think I do use it in tight situations where I need to replenish my shield quickly, and I think a good combination to use it is if you built a melee-centric build for the Slayer, and you could use the Biotic Charge to replenish your shield immediately after doing a series of dodges or heavy melee attacks, and you could do that as a good combo to keep your shields up and deal some massive damage with the melee sword. Now the next power for the N7 Slayer is the Phase Disruptor. It's a long-range beam-based attack, and it has its explosion that it causes at the end of its beam is an area effect, so you can affect multiple enemies at once. The downside is that it takes quite a bit of your personal barrier, whenever you use it. There's perks in the tree where you can reduce the amount of barrier that it takes up, but with the build that I use, I don't spend a lot of points into it because it just takes out too much of your shield. But it is a good supplement to your powers because you can use it even if your other powers are recharging, especially with the Biotic Charge, who has such a long recharge time. And that's actually a good combination right there to alternate between using Phase Disruptor and Biotic Charge. Another good combination is to use it with one of the other squad mate powers. For example, if your squad mates are using the N7 Demolisher, I think that's the one that has the supply pylon, and also one of the Geth, who has the Geth turret, because they replenish your shield. So if you're in the midst of a Geth turret or a supply pylon, it'll replenish your shield as you use the Phase Disruptor, so you can spam the power as much as you want without having to worry too much about your shield. And the last and the most important of your biotic powers is Biotic Slash. It's probably going to be the power that you're going to be using the most throughout your games. And it's similar to the Smash power of the Phoenix Adept or Vanguard from the previous map pack, the Rebellion map pack. But in many ways, it's better than the Smash power, at least in my opinion. Because one, I think it does more damage than the Smash power. I think my character at its max level can deal out 1,000 damage or so with just one Biotic Slash. And two, it has a relatively long range. the default range is 10 meters, and you can increase it even more, I think to a maximum of 15 meters with one of the perks in the skill tree. It also has the ability to go through most of the walls. So if a wall has, like, say, an opening on the side, or if it's a low wall, the Biotic Slash would just go right through it, and you can attack enemies on the other side. And I think when you consider the damage dealt, the range, and the ability to go through walls, this Biotic Slash is a really powerful power to use. The way I mostly use my character is to hang back and just spam Biotic Slash whenever I can behind some cover. And the Biotic Slash will just go through cover, so I don't even really need to poke out. It can be tricky though, keeping within cover, because the twirl that the Slayer does when he's using Biotic Slash, it kind of disorients it yourself, so he kind of moves off to the side if you're not careful. But it's relatively easy once you get used to it to keep him behind cover. And that twirl is really the only downside to using Biotic Slash, because it does take some time to actually initialize the attack while he's twirling. And I think it takes like between 1 to 2 seconds to actually use the attack. And but the recharge time is great. It's like less than a second or so. But yeah, that twirl is the only real downside, and it's not even that much of that bad of a downside, and that's why I prefer it to the smash of the Phoenix Adept. Now the Cerberus does relatively well against all the enemy types. I think the enemies that provide the most trouble for the Slayer is the Cerberus enemies, and that's mostly because of the Phantom. And that's because mostly whenever I play as a Slayer, I usually hang back behind my teammates and hide behind cover, spamming my Biotic Slash, and the Phantom will actively try to seek you out and get close to you. And that kind of disorients yourself when you're spamming the Biotic Slash. And using Biotic Slash is also tricky when using against the Phantom, because she moves around a lot, so it's hard to kind of get her on target. Also, she also puts up that Biotic Shield, so sometimes when your Biotic Slash actually does hit it, it doesn't do any damage because she has the shield up, so that can be really annoying. Another tricky enemy type from the Cerberus is the Guardian, because they have that shield, and that shield can block some of your biotic powers initially. But they can be taken down pretty easily if you manage to flank them, or use your weapon or phase disruptor after either charging them or using your Biotic Slash. All the other enemy types are relatively easy to beat, so the ones you just need to watch out for are the Phantom and the Guardian. The guests shouldn't be too much of a problem either, because most of them are slow moving, and as long as you're behind cover, you don't need to worry about pyros or the rocket troopers or the primes. I guess the only one you need to kind of be careful with are the hunters, because they can sneak up on you. But as long as you're aware of your surroundings, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. The Reapers can be kind of tricky if you aren't careful, especially on open maps where you don't have much cover. And the Ravagers can just destroy you, so if you're not careful. So the ones you really need to worry about are probably the Brutes and the Banshees. Brutes, you can, if you can take them out before they get close to you, that's fine. But the Banshees, with their teleporting and everything, can get pretty frantic. So just make sure you try to take them out as quickly as possible, and make sure you don't let the Banshees get close to you. If they do, teleport out of there using your either roll or your heavy melees, whatever you choose, so that you don't get one-shotted by the Banshee. But yeah, overall the N7 Slayer is a pretty fun class to play. He's adaptable in a lot of different scenarios. You can either use him for long-range attacks or short-range, however you choose. You can soup him up for a melee-centered build. Yeah, you can use him however you want, and he'll be fun to play with, especially with his teleportation abilities and his sword fighting. And you're very likely to get the top score whenever you play as him. If you know how to use the strategies and everything, you'll most likely get the top score, just because he's so powerful. But yeah, anyways, thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.